viewers, thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center in Nairobi, in Africa, my headquarters. Thank you very much for listening to us in the first show. And this is our second show this morning, Diplomatic Leaks. Today, there is a refugee crisis across the world. The refugees that have been refused entry into United Kingdom, in Europe, those who have been dying on the on the Mediterranean Sea, they are being told they cannot enter Europe. But instead, there is a new way of making them go to a place where they could be screened and then they can enter Europe without stepping near the borders of Europe. And that is the crisis that we want to face this morning. And my diplomatic leaks looks at what are the difficulties, the obstacles, the challenges that governments in Europe get when it comes to refugee status and according refugee status to people and giving them. Is it the space that is lacking in those countries? Is it the service? Are they the services that are lacking? We have seen refugees across in Poland they are being killed, actually. Black refugees, Africans, they are being beaten from Ukraine. They left Ukraine. Students who are stranded there, they cannot have access, they cannot go out, they cannot have anything to a train, not to transport, not a bus. These are some of the obstacles and the challenges that we want to look at. But Britain and my sister, because Brit comes from my town, the father was from my town, and I would not be shy to say she's more or less like we come from the same district with Brit, who is the new Home Office Secretary of State for the British government. She's a Ugandan she's herself a refugee who was born in the United Kingdom, and because the father left Uganda, was just out of Mali and the areas to go to United Kingdom, where they found life, and today he's a minister of Home Affairs, which handles refugees in Britain. And she's a very tough talking Asian lady friend of ours. I know her for a long time. I know what she can do and not do. So Brit was on a mission this week to come to Rwanda to talk to the Rwandese. We saw her on the boat. We saw her in Rwanda with the government of President Kagame, trying to convince the Rwandese to take some of the refugees who died. But Miriam, thank you very much in the panel. Before I hand over the mantle, so that you can you take us in the debate for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then we come back, I do a summary of takeaway, because this is a subject which is straightforward. Something is not right. Why is it that Africans leave Africa to go into Europe? Can we find the root cause instead of adding more problems, or instead of doing things that will create more difficulties? That is my position, the way I want to go in my summary. But here we are, we have Rwandese government has accepted to take in refugees, thousands of them, who have been stranded across the borders in Tunisia, in Italy, in Britain, crossing the English Channel. Those who have arrived in the UK and they need to be taken out because the system is full. The Rwandese government has accepted to take them and resettle them. Those who want to resettle in Rwanda can resettle. Those who want to go can go. Let's discuss that topic. Miriam, back to you. Give us a background.
All right, and as you've said there, Rwanda has agreed to take in immigrants denied entry into the United Kingdom, even as Kenya declined London's request to help it ease the burden of unwanted guests. And as Rwanda and the UK signed the Migration and Economic Development Partnership on Thursday last week, questions were being asked of the fate of those who will be relocated. Previous such deals neither prevented the refugees from attempting to return to the territories that rejected them nor assured them of an adequate settlement life in their new homes. The actual number of migrants to be relocated was not given, but officials suggested that any male migrant caught trying to enter the UK territory illegally by boat or hiding in vehicles will be shipped to Rwanda, while the deal with Rwanda reflects just how the UK has struggled to seal its borders, especially after voting to exit the European Union. It is expected to allow London to dispense with the burden at a fee to Rwanda. The British government recently announced a pilot plan to address its continued refugee crisis. The UK Interior Ministry has signed a deal with Rwanda to send many migrants arriving in the UK to the East African nation where their asylum claims can be processed. Many may be asked even to settle in Rwanda. The authorities in Britain insist this new partnership with Rwanda is designed to combat criminal gangs that exploit the migrants. And after 28,000 people crossed the English Channel from France in small boats last year and several drowned, efforts to halt those potentially deadly journeys have included cooperation with French police, payments to the French government, and the threatened use of British naval ships to push migrant boats back from the shores of southern England. Hundreds of protesters demonstrated outside the Interior Ministry last week, and more than 150 NGOs and advocacy groups have slammed the idea at a time when tens of thousands of British residents are volunteering to host refugees from Ukraine. And of course, that move by the British government is seen to contravene the Geneva Convention Agreement on Refugees. Okay, so as we wait, Doc, and of course, according to this new agreement, all people crossing the border illegally into the UK, Rwanda will be getting about 120 million pounds in return per year. 120 million pounds per year will be paid to Rwanda to host these refugees. So that's interesting. But the agreement contravenes asylum law and the Geneva Convention, to which the UK is a signatory, concerning people who cross the border illegally. The Geneva Convention makes it very clear that people who cross a border to seek asylum should not be sanctioned for breaking the law, even if they use smugglers. And people who are fleeing a life-threatening situation in their own country, it is not always possible to apply for a visa, and you have to be able to travel quickly to another country to seek asylum, no matter how. Imagine this will mean that the Ukrainians right now fleeing. But what is really interesting is that the refugees that are coming from Ukraine are being processed very fast, and they're allowed to enter, the UK. But anybody else, especially from Asia and Africa, are not allowed to go there. Instead, you'll be taken back to Rwanda. So we see also some racial undertones in that, in that new move by the UK government. Doc, back to you.
Thank you very much, viewers. This is very interesting. Is it commercial or humanitarian? What does the Geneva Convention say about anybody who has Googled you, Gibson? You should be very active.
But I just read it.
And
I just read it just a minute ago.
I was on another. Sorry, Miriam.
Yeah,
the Geneva Convention of 1954.
This agreement contravenes asylum law and the Geneva Convention, to which the UK is a signatory, concerning people who cross the border illegally. The Geneva Convention makes it clear that people who cross a border to seek asylum should not be sanctioned for breaking the law, even if they use smugglers, and they should not be removed from that country.
Exactly. A good refugee is a man who comes with a stolen passport. Did you know that?
Doc, that if you were to look at what is happening right now in Ukraine, people whose houses were burned don't have anything to show.
Yes, I'm coming on that one.
So what time do they have to get a passport?
You don't have a passport.
Yeah.
You have to get a document. Everything is banned. There is nothing you have.
Yes.
And then you reach somewhere, you say, I have come, I found somebody's passport, I removed my name, and I am here, but they want to kill me. Then the people whom you have come to, Miriam, they tell you, you go back to where you came from. You have nowhere to go. You have no food. You have no utensil. You don't have even a blanket. You don't have even shoes to walk back. You are right. But I was giving you one of the components, qualifications of the, because I learned this from the British Refugee Council, because I worked there with other people, agencies, with Zenawi and Ifaki, the Prime Minister Ifaki and Zenawi of Eritrea, the president. We used to be Uganda Relief Community Association, and in 1987, we were working there. There's one thing I learned from that British Refugee Council in 1987 in London, that a good refugee is the one who has documents that don't rhyme. Because if you are a refugee, then you come with the document of your own office. That I left the office yesterday, I was wearing this and I've come here. That's one of the qualifications which knocks you off as a refugee. You get the point, Miriam? They said then there was nobody chasing you. It means you passed with your document. But if you come, you have nothing, as Miriam says, you have nothing. You have come from Ukraine. You are a student and the bombs hit the other house dormitory and you were left with nothing. Then you have said, the only thing to do for me is to go home, to find where I can go. Then they say, you go. We shall load you up in a camp, but we want to take you to a place where we can go and screen you. That is a violation of the Geneva Convention. And I'm sure somebody is already in court in the UK to block such an action. But with the governments as it is, you cannot block it. The Geneva Convention is very clear. The UN adheres to those conventions, that a refugee is a refugee recognized anywhere on the planet Earth, in the place where he has gone and said, I am in trouble. And therefore, I need to have, assistance from you. But then you don't come and say, you leave and go and seek that assistance elsewhere. Or yet me go and hold you in another place 10,000 miles away from here, while I see whether I can allow you to bring yourself or bring you in. That is exactly the scenario, Miriam, that is happening between my sister Brit and the Rwandese government and the conservative government. Unfortunately, I'm a Labour man. I vote Labour. I've voted the Labour Party in Britain for the last 34 years. 36 years, yes. I became a member 36 years ago in the Labour Party, and I still contribute my money to the Labour Party. We lost the election. Tony Blair missed us. We lost another one. We have lost this one. We continue losing. Maybe it is again time for me to return to the ground with good luck, like the one I did in 1998. Then we won. We won, the Labour Party won, because we campaigned vigorously, Miriam, in Croydon Central, where constituency in Surrey, where I live. So when you look at all those things, it is better for one of the things that makes me not happy is, Miriam, as much as we would like to condemn Britain, why is it that we Africans ourselves don't sit down as African Union and condemn brutality? Are you seeing my angle? We don't condemn brutality on the continent. When they are beating your neighbor, you laugh. You say, oh, that's Somalia, it is their problem. I am sure Tichuru and Paul Onyango will say, when you tell them about Somalia, say, we are fed up with them.
But they are part of the problems in this continent, these people from the Western world.
Okay.
Yes.
You see,
we have to look at the facts now.
Have you seen the argument now?
But they're part of the problem. The crisis that even Kenya and Somalia
finish.
has. UK is supporting Somalia. They're part of the problem. And what we see here is a clear, for me, where I stand and how we've been seeing these things play out. As much as we do have a crisis in the continent, we have a lot of young people dying in the Mediterranean, which is very sad. And this is something we should address as a continent. I agree with you up to that point, Doc. But they are agreeing for the Ukrainian refugees to go to the UK and others from across Europe. But the people who are being returned back are Africans and Asians, I think, and the refugees from the Middle East. There's some racism in that, and we have to call it out for what it is.
Yes, but look, that is, I agree with you 100%. But we should look for the root cause. For example, why is it that Somalia is still the same problem since 1991, when my friend here was not born? He found Somalia fighting, killing each other. Why? We should find that problem. Why is it that Democratic Republic of Congo produces only refugees and musicians who dance in Europe? They have all left in here and they have gone to dance in Paris. Where? Why? Why is it that we go to Libya? Libyans, now look at how many Libyans are in Nairobi. Do you know that we have Libyan refugees in Nairobi? They are here.
And who caused the crisis in Libya?
Okay, now we are talking. Now we are talking.
So if they've caused crisis here and we try to go there and they still, it does not make sense.
The same people who caused the crisis in Libya don't want you to go to their country.
They are the architects. Even in the DRC, they are the architect of all this chaos, even in Somalia itself.
There you are.
And Doc, you understand very well the history.
Now, this is very interesting. That's why I am saying, as an African, why don't we as African Union and Africans, heads of state, instead of accepting this thing blanket like Kagame has done, sit down and ask, you are now bringing these people back to me. Why is it that some of them from Libya are coming to me? Because you went and dismembered Libya. Is there any leader questioning that? Miriam, I agree with you. Miriam, show me one leader, apart from M7, tried to question why. But when he questions, then they ask him also, how many of the Ugandans are here? You see, we have got to find a root cause. What is it that is making these people travel all the way through Sahara Desert towards Mediterranean Sea? We have everything. We have the minerals. We have the good water. We have everything, Miriam. What is it? What wrong have we done to God? That our Africa, thank you.
Governance.
Thank you. But that one, be as it is, I agree with Miriam's point that it is them who instigate the chaos. So when you reach there, they tell you go back. Now, give you an example. I gave Somalia, which unfortunately Miriam does not want. My sister does not want to hear about Somalia because we have talked about it. It is part of the biggest problem we have. In fact, we've started being hated everywhere in Europe because of the Somalis. The behavior. They turned around there, they started against, speaking that they have sijui what, God has told them to do certain things. So people started hating every refugee. You have been given, Miriam, the time we went there, let me tell you, my sister, in a small nutshell of 1 minute or two, when we went there in 1987, 86, 87, when we arrived in United Kingdom, there was everything in plenty. They could pick you, take you to a bed and a breakfast, arrange for you a room. And I remember that the money at that time was 80 pounds 72 pence per week. 80 pounds. Then later on it rose to 12. In 1990 it became 23. That is medium. That is the money you are paid weekly. Because there is a law in Britain that if they find you with no £1 in the pocket, then the police will arrest you. I don't know how many times Mr. Gichuru would be in trouble with the police in the United Kingdom. If you don't have £1, Gichuru and Paul Medium, they take you in. You are going to cause trouble. Because now they know a normal person in Britain must have the money. If you don't have the money, then you must go and fill the forms, and the government will give you what Raila is trying to introduce here. Social, if Gichuru is not working, Gichuru will receive some social support every month. Is that bad? Is that what Raila is suggesting? Is it bad? You can't wait for bottom up to grow in the bottom up down. You have never poured a glass from bottom down. You pour it from bottom up. Did you try to pour a glass from bottom up and we see bottom down and we see? Where? Where will you turn the glass like this and try to pour? Everything comes from graffiti. Jermaine, you younger men, what's going on with you? You Paul and Paul is not young. You especially, look, you get a glass like this, a cup, and try to turn it upside down, then you say pour in something. We need to go. So Raila is trying to do what in the UK in 1987, we used to get what we call social welfare society. A vulnerable family, a vulnerable youth who is not employed, they look at his circumstances and they give you 6,000 shillings per month. The Gichuru, it will push you. It will push you for your needs. It might not be enough, but it will keep you on a bus while you yourself struggling to get where you can get a job.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this social repair even worth it? Because I don't think there are people dying of starvation in Northeastern, and yet we're here talking about distributing that money can be used to do other beneficial things. I'm not saying that this is not beneficial for us, but we do have other.
The Gichuru not to go because we have very little time. People dying of starvation in Northeastern is not the question of Raila. It's the question of the governors. How much money have the governors taken? Okay. Take a district like Mandela. Do you know how many billions it has taken for the last 10 years? It's over 400 billion shillings. Over 400 billion shillings. Turkana. But you find a borehole in Turkana. You find a borehole in Wajir, in Mandela, in Garissa. These governors have bought buildings in Turkey. I have got a report this morning, Miriam, my God. Some of these men are very rich. They have bought buildings in Turkey, Qatar, in Dubai, while people are starving. Now, the local person who is Gichuru, a student in a university, has been politicized and told the money is stolen by the Uhuru Kenyatta government. But you need to go down and see the Uhuru Kenyatta government. Who in the government is stealing the money? That's why you see Raila Amolo Odinga is saying a welfare state. If the money is available, we crack corruption. Each Kenyan will have 6 who is not employed. We receive 6,000 Kenya shillings. You go to an employment bureau, Jichuru, you fill your form. You said, I studied journalism in Nairobi University, but I have not got a job up to now. I'm looking for a job, but I don't have food to eat as I look for the job. That money will be given to you every 6 months. You hear that, my son? Every 1 month, you'll have it. That is how some of us arrived in that place. Remember, I arrived in Britain with nothing, except my trouser, my shirt, my shoes, my Casimiro briefcase like this, which I was left with after the military coup in 1985. We were overthrown and I was left. I was in another capital city and we were overthrown. I never even went back to say bye-bye to my wife. I want to tell you, up to today, she is in God. She has gone to heaven. I have never said bye-bye to her. She left me 4 children, whom I brought up. I have never said bye-bye to her. From 1985, 27th July, I became a refugee. And you can see the conditions. A government overthrown, the other government comes in, doesn't like you. You can't stay there. Can you stay there? If your neighbor does not like you and says, this one worked with Raila, or this one worked with Ruto, you see, they will send Jichuru to say, hey, fungua mlango. Wewe ulikuwa nafanya kazi na Jichuru. Yes, una Paul. They will beat you and kill you. So that is how life is. Persecution and persecution. So basically, when this happens, time has come for us as Africans to sit down and say, why do we have our people dying in Mediterranean Sea? Instead of taking policies that are very controversial, like this one, Miriam, is very controversial. Everybody in Africa is saying, why is it His Excellency Kagame, the one accepting these guys to come to Rwanda? Recently, you saw United States of America asked Uganda to take some Talibans and Afghanistans. Do you not see that nobody is talking about those guys who went to Uganda now? We don't know. We might be building another army, which we don't know, of terrorists who could turn up to kill us in this region. So these double standards, you come to cause a war. I agree with Miriam. When the people run into you, you tell them you have nowhere to come. Don't go back. Syrian refugees, the same. You see the Syrian refugees. Where do you take Afghanistan refugees?
And that's what made Britain leave Europe, because there was an agreement for when these refugees were coming in, all the European countries could take a fee, and Britain was not in agreement with that. So that was the main reason why it exited Europe. So I think the main thing here is, I think I have a problem with Britain, and as much as I think they have been good in the past in terms of accepting and taking care of refugees and having them settled there. And I do understand it can be overwhelming because everybody seeks to go to Europe, to Britain in particularly, but also on the other hand, Britain is revealing itself as a very racist country, and we have to call it out for what it is. I think that is the main. If everybody else was being sent elsewhere, that's fine. If the Ukrainian refugees are also being sent out of Britain, then that's okay. But how do you accept those? But the other ones from Asia, from Asia, the other ones from Middle East, the other ones from Africa cannot be accepted. That is where I have a problem with. So it's not even why Rwanda is accepting them, because also Uganda accepted, as you said there, you reminded us, Doc, accepted refugees from Afghanistan last year. And so that is where I have a problem with. Why is it that if they're not from Europe, they're not accepted in Britain?
I think, to be fair, Miriam, Britain is the only country in Europe that is not discriminatory.
Its system, even the monarchy, is built on classism and
yeah, but
racism.
it is the only, to be honest, it's the only country in Europe where a black man like Matanga can vie for a post in the Labour Party and be given a delegate. I became a delegate of Labour Party, even with my English accent of Uganda. I was able to be elected as a delegate of the Labour Party in Brighton in 1998. I took part. I went to school in the United Kingdom. I went to the university in the United Kingdom. I read in the United Kingdom. I was never discriminated by any teacher. No. Because we went at that time, Miriam, in the name of God.
But do they teach about colonialism?
We went at that time. There was no many fraudulent things
that is happening, and I do agree. And I've said in the past, it was very good in terms of helping and hosting. That's where I started with. So I'm not disputing that. It has done that, and there are many people who have settled in Britain. That is a fact.
I am Miriam,
even from Kenya here. There's so many people I know.
Proud.
Yeah.
I am one of those who has settled there.
But what I'm saying, for right
Her
now,
Majesty government for settling me as a refugee in the United Kingdom.
And I know so many other Kenyans also there. I do know that.
Are equal, yes.
And we are not disputing that. And we've seen that because we also know of a Somalia Kenyan here who is also, serving in the US and and across the world. So Britain has, in the past, has been very good in that, and I'm not disputing. And even now, I think if you apply for going there in ways that are okay, I think you will be accepted. I'm not denying that.
Yes,
but it is just how they're handling this refugee crisis right now that I'm having trouble with. For right now, what is happening. And I do understand they're very overwhelmed, but also we have to call it out for what it is.
Yes, that is okay. Even the Labour government is calling it out as it is.
Yeah. Even
I remember the Labour opposition party in the UK has gone to court to stop these refugees being handed over to Rwanda and to be repatriated in Rwanda for 162 million euros. Let's be very honest. Let's give a credit where it is due. Britain is one the country in the world that accepts everybody, almost everyone on planet Earth. If you go to France, you would just run away the first day. If you went to France and you see the way Miriam, these blacks from Congo live, is not the type of standard that is in Britain. They are segregated. You can see the shanties. They say, you want what music of Congo? Uko. And Uko, they are there. But in Britain, there is no segregation of us, Matanga. We live, all of us. Britain is a country which is cosmopolitan. Everybody lives there. Everybody struggles. They don't care whether you are black or white. You struggle and get what you want. If you have the talent, and the tools of analysis, let me give you I agree with you on some extent. This one, they have 100 parties. But look at me. Look at Priti Patel. I can name you Margaret Bucket. There are so many ministers in Britain who are Ugandan refugees who went there during Idi Amin, whom I found there. Look at me. I went for a post. I went for an interview with Sky News. And the Miriam, there were 20,000, about 18,000 applicants. And they wanted only 2 people capable as senior African consultants for Sky News. I beat it. They did not know me. I put in my papers. I put in my university, my degrees. I said, this is the university. You can check this, my student number. Check. They checked. They said, come for the oral interview. We went for the oral interview. And I'm telling you, this one, God held my hands. Capital city of Libya, Tripoli. capital city of this. Who was the president of Libya before I said King Idris? All the questions, Miriam, in the name of God, I smashed them. I came out student #1 in that team. When they were asking about River Nile, where does the source of River Nile be? Where is it? Some people were saying the source of River Nile was in Cairo. I said, no, River Nile source is in Uganda. They ask you so many questions. Who was Kwame Nkrumah? This is politics because you are going to handle news. So in Britain, you are given an opportunity. It's a country for opportunity where you excel with tools. But there is a problem. And we also, as much as Miriam has called out on this current situation, let me also call upon ourselves. We are very bad people when we are given this opportunity. There was no visa for entry of Kenyans and Ugandans in Britain. But the Americans, the Nigerians, our friends from West Africa, misused the visa. Fraudulently, they started doing so many bad things. It is like now Dubai. Miriam, will you blame Dubai for being very bad? That when you enter Dubai airport, they have put that Nigerians here, you follow this. Did you know that? You feel ashamed as an African to enter Dubai with another black African you have sat with on the plane in business class. And he's going to the queue where Nigerians are. China. At the moment, will you also blame China? We should blame ourselves and our mindsets at times. China used to give people goods on credit. Now, Nigerians went there and they take the goods. They say the goods are on a plane. You have already put them on the plane. And the plane has left. Before the plane takes over and they say the engine is starting, Miriam, the pilot is saying, engine start. This Nigerian calls home and say, cancel my credit card, it has been stolen. And the good, you have already taken the goods of Chinese. So when the Chinese goes back to claim the money from the bank, because the credit card, once swiped, it takes time for money to be transferred. There is no money. But they have gone with the goods. That's why China put a visa for the Americans, and for the Dubai the same. They took people goods from Dubai, they steal them. During COVID, the Nigerians come to Nairobi. From Nairobi, they purchase fake documents of COVID-19. They arrive there as from Kenya. It stopped Kenya Airways from flying in Dubai. So, yes, I agree, my dear sister, that, that it is us. There's something that at the moment the conservative government has done, which is not right, to deny people under the Geneva Convention. But also in Africa, we should sit down and see why these things happen to us only. Why? Bad governance, bad mindset. The thing that I picked up is governance. It's very bad. Every African country has got turmoil. There is a coup, there is a military coup, there is a military junta, there is a war in Somalia that never ends, in DRC Congo, in Maputo, Mozambique, in Sahara region, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, every country, Nigeria itself. You know, we have a problem on African continent. Indeed, that is where the problem is. Miriam.
All right. I don't know if there's anybody else in the panel who would like to add on to the conversation, Paul or Gibson.
I'm good.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me do a takeaway. Takeaway, please. Yes.
I proceed. Do I proceed? Or?
Hey, you have something to say?
Yes.
Okay. Well, but Miriam was asking, where were you?
Okay. My take is, when I'm looking at Kagame, after the genocide, 1994, there was a president, anaitwa Bizimungu ama nani?
Habyarimana.
Before,
No, Habyarimana was the former, then Bizimungu.
Bizimungu, after Bizimungu,
Yes.
during the time of Bizimungu, France accused Kagame by then, who was the vice president, to have masterminded the genocide. So after Kagame took over power, when Pascal Bizimungu resigned.
Yes.
I think his system might have hanged or something, so perhaps. Paul, can you hear me? We have a problem, so perhaps Doc just proceed with the.
Let me do a takeaway. Mm-hmm. The refugee crisis that we see currently between Europe and Africa has several factors, underlying factors that spring up anytime you look deeper into the crisis. First of all, it is true that the West also takes part in the confusion that we see in Africa. The West supports some of the places where the refugees come from. They create wars, they create fighting, crises, bad elections, support dictators across the continent of Africa for the interests of this Western hemisphere. But the crisis of refugees must go deeper than that. We must go deeper to find out the root cause. The root cause of the crisis is not merely the question of refugees walking across Sahara Desert into Mediterranean Sea, taking their lives through the Mediterranean Sea or surviving the English Channel to cross over to Britain. But it's a crisis that we must dig deeper to find out who is responsible for the trigger of many, many Africans, for the trigger of many, many Asians, for the trigger of many Syrians. Some of these reasons go back to the same places that are denying these refugees entry into the states in Europe. We have seen the example of Afghanistan. We have seen the example of Iraq. We have seen the example now of Ukraine. We have seen the examples of Syria. We have seen the examples of the Sahara region, Somalia, Libya. For example, a classic example on African continent is Libya, a stable democracy or non-democratic stability, stable, feeding its people in thousands and millions, giving them welfare state, paying school fees, good schools, good hospitals, good roads. It was reduced to a rubble because of mere lies that Libya had nuclear weapons. We have not been shown these nuclear weapons. But it goes back to explain to you that some of these policies are the ones that kill the same vision of returning refugees to places where they have come from. Yet we should be the people to protect them under the Geneva Convention. Yes, to some extent, Africa itself has to blame. To some extent, Africa has taken the biggest toll because most of the people crossing the Mediterranean Sea are mainly Africans. Those who have drowned in Mediterranean Sea come from Eritrea, from the Sahel region, from Somalia, from Ethiopia, Tigray, and from so many other hot points where there's war. But the truth remains, the responsibility lies with the type of governance that some African countries have. The repression of human rights, the mistreatment of humanity leads to exodus from the African continent. But what about the European angle, where we have a total angle of discrimination, that there are people who are told you can't come in here, but you can be held somewhere else, then we are screened. How can we resolve this as the world order? We recently had refugees from Afghanistan thrown into Uganda. We don't know how many they are, where they are, what they are doing at the moment. We still have refugees coming in Kenya in huge numbers as a result of the bad administration of some of the territories that surround Kenya, especially from South Sudan, Somalia, Congo, and Eritrea, and Ethiopia. How long will Africa hold on with this type of menace? Time has come for us to sort our own troubles so that we stop the exodus of the refugees from African continent into the European continent. And it is also time for Europe to know and to stop triggering wars on the African continent and supporting dictatorships on the African continent, where these refugees come from, then they start marching towards Europe. That is my take. Hello. I don't deserve a clap here. Miriam, I've captured your point.
Yeah, I was listening.
I captured your point, yes, madam.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, I do the opinion now of Matiang.